This skill.
You're recording it on the laptop too, right?
Right, but
Okay.
it's just, it's hooking up now to YouTube.
Okay, so we can go ahead and start.
All right, let's call the meeting to order. Roll call.
I think you gotta try that.
Kathy, you get the roll call now?
I do except for. It is.
Dan, that note?
Okay.
Approval of agenda, additions or deletions.
Mr. Vice Chair, I do have a that's for addition to the agenda. I'd like to add in an 11D to talk about a service territory.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the- Second.
Aye.
Swearing in Commissioner Daniels.
So Dan, if you just want to repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Dan Anderson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution of the United States,
to support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully the duties of the office of Principal Utilities Commissioner
and to discharge faithfully the duties of the office of Princeton Public Utilities Commission,
of the City of Princeton, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment.
the City of Princeton, Minnesota, to the best of my judgment.
Afterwards, we'll now sign it. It's just a little something we like to do, just to recognize your service and kind of make it official.
Yeah.
Thank you for re-enlisting. so to speak.
Yeah.
No longer private.
Yeah. I didn't think it was gonna be that controversial, but I thought it would be a little bit, but not. I appreciate the it's, from the council. You know, it's, the mayor had called me and I told him, you know, it's up to him, you know, he'll seem to be kind of swing vote. So it's up to you. I'm not gonna try to harbor any ill feelings either way. Yeah, I was kind of surprised, and I told her at the time of the meeting, and I didn't get an invite, a Zoom invite, so I don't know if there's something special you have to do. Zoom invite to
I think you have to let somebody know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shauna.
Shauna needs to know.
But I do feel like one term is barely enough to really get to know really even what's going on with the PUC. I mean, I don't even know. You know, I would imagine it's the same as one term on city council. You really, how much do you really get to know about the operations? So I feel like, you know, a couple of terms just to really get stride on what's happening in their budgets and, you know, I mean, let alone get into what these guys are doing, you know, you know, there's just so much to this. It's a $8 million business, and you just, you know, a few hours a month is not enough to really, you know, a couple of years is not enough to really be considered. Haven't been around too long. That's what I'm getting at, so.
Well, on behalf of the city, we're looking forward to working with you as we have in the past and continue a good relationship.
Yeah.
You and the PUC.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for the time that you have spent. But I do understand what you're saying. It takes a little bit to get,
Yeah,
understanding. I'm still constantly.
Yeah. and there's some, some things that I'd like to work on still.
Sure.
I want to work with the city, obviously, but here we're responsible to the ratepayers first. Once we can maintain a reasonable rates, we can work with the community. I would like to see our commercial rates be competitive with our surrounding commercial rates. That's one thing that I want to work on, especially with this park development. I would like for that not to be a deterrent to getting businesses in our industrial park to expand that way, just because rates might be better. In the next, we'll get that done on our next stint. I don't think that's really out of the possibility. So, but once we get our rate studies, things like that, there's a lot of good things happening. That's all I have to say about that for now. Moving on, election of officers.
Yeah, and Mr. Vice Chair, personal, see this morning.
Oh.
So, with that out,
Okay.
the election discussion.
So usually open that up for nominations. So
Well, I think last month we postponed it because all three of us weren't in person. That might be a good thing to do now. So all three of us are together. Greg's position is if he wants to just be a commissioner or extend on.
I would concur with Commissioner Schwartz. The discussion last month was Greg having an interest in having a discussion amongst the three of you, and having the three of you decide on that position. I don't have the information that has changed.
So he is interested in doing it.
I think-
If we
I think he is interested in having a discussion about that position. I can't say one way or the other.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we could, Mr. Chairman, accomplish anything today.
Yeah.
Because if you nominated me, I'm not going to vote for myself,
Right.
you know, and vice versa. So,
And I it's not that huge, really.
we're still functioning.
Yeah. So let's just table that until put that on the agenda for next month. Makes sense. Number 5, approval of minutes.
If I may, Mr. Chair, under 4B, there is the secretary position, which has been held by Kathy Woman. We
Oh.
could, if the commission is interested in at least officially doing that.
I would make the motion, so if she's interested.
Is that a yes? Is that a yes? There we is. I'll second that. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval minutes. Regular meeting, January 26th.
Through it before, and I'm not aware of anything that is going out to me, so I take that motion.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That's approved. Public comment section. So this section is for the purpose of allowing customers to address the commission. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Dan, do you have anything you want to do? Just here to observe?
Today,
Yeah. Yeah. No, nothing?
nope.
Certification of accounts payable.
The question I had, is item 34. Again, if I've asked about that already, forgive me. But the Dropbox. Is that a new item or does that have anything to do with setting up for the HSA?
Kathy, can you, that Dropbox is the black box with the door for dropping payments in
Oh, okay.
on the front door?
So that would, so
It's card member services.
this is just a credit card.
Correct.
It's, what you're looking at is the company credit card, where we just do some miscellaneous expenses. And so in the Dropbox, up front, we did put in a receptacle where
Okay.
people will drop payments off just to kind of clean that up a little bit.
I didn't know if it had anything to do with the change with HSA or implementation of.
No, that's simply our
Okay.
company credit.
All right. I don't have anything else unless, Mr. Chairman, if you do.
No, I don't have any.
With that, then I make the motion to approve.
I'll second. Motion second to approve the certification of accounts payable. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 8, reports and presentations, simple reports.
Mr. Vice Chair, standard monthly reports are in your packets. I guess my only real comment is we have added in an ACH tracking report, just so the commission can see the participation in the ACH program. And when we put that together, we did go all the way back to June of 2021, just to give some historical context. And so that is something that we will update each month.
So, updates, electrical department.
Yes, we finished up the service at the first apartment building that they're working on First Street. That service is hot into the building. The house service, the three-phase service is energized, the meter is there, but we are continuing to wait on the meters for the apartments themselves. They are out April now, maybe. So I emailed Dan Schmuck from Eaton before the meeting earlier today, trying to get an update on them. I have not heard back from them yet. So we're waiting on those. But I think their occupancy originally was June 1st, but I don't know if they're going to make that. No, I don't. Terry Mick, the general contractor, was not optimistic about that date. But we'll see. But yeah, the lead times on the electric meters has been an issue. I'm sure he'll have an update too. We did have an outage a couple weeks ago between 7th and 8th Avenue from 2nd Street to 6th Street south. We had a fused elbow go bad. Was able to isolate the cable and the elbow, get everybody back on in just about an hour, and then the next morning we were able to fix it and get everything back to normal. Otherwise, we've had no other weather-related outages with the high winds or snow or anything like that. We completed the one solar project that we had going on I-185. There is another one out on Alpha Road that we're continuing to work with. We've had some MMUA training, meter reading. Kathy and I and Keith, we met with the auditors regarding our inventory. We got our inventory counts and did they do a physical check every year they come in, so that went well. And then just basic run of the mill every day-to-day operation stuff so far.
So you're doing test runs right now.
Monthly runs. So. It's not 97. Sure.
Okay. Water. Department updates.
Nope, since the last meeting there, we had a hydrant leak that actually had a leak. We isolated that hydrant out. We're gonna wait till spring and some fair weather to get that fixed. We were in contact with the fire chief and everybody on that, so. We had another one just Monday, we had a frozen service line to a house. They were able to get a plumber in there and got that taken care of, so they're back in service. So hopefully that's not a start of a bad thing, but we're getting close. Monthly back T testing and fluoride samples have all been completed. We changed out an air wash valve at water treatment plant 2. This one was leaking there, so we got that taken care of. Truck maintenance, snow plowing. Jim and Kenny received their Class D water operator license. So they got results back on that, so they have that now. We've got the cell phones switched over to FirstNet. So that has been a project we've been working on for that. The water nodes, same case as electric meters, that date just keeps getting creeped out. They're saying the production is going, I believe this week or next week, they're supposed to have production going and a test run, but hopefully we can get some here sooner than later. Next week, we'll be attending the Minnesota Rural Water Technical Conference for a couple days, or 3 days. A couple guys going over for that. And then power plant, we had a test run today. These are so far going good there. Last month we had unit 6, we had an injector line in the valve cover crack and was leaking fuel. So we got that before the run here, we got that all fixed back up. Unit 4, we've been chasing on an exhaust leak. We're gaining on it, I think. So, and then Chris Waters been in doing some jacket water treatment testing and stuff. And then the weekly SIMPA readiness meeting. They've been attending that, kind of an update of where plants are all at on fuel, staffing, all that kind of stuff. So, should be about it.
Okay, thank you. City of Princeton update.
Right. Let's start us off. Okay, so we got a few things. First off, our finance director has tendered her resignation. She got headhunted without knowing she was being headhunted by a former employer. They made her an offer she just couldn't refuse. So job is currently posted. This first round of job seeking closes next Tuesday. So, and Tracy's last day is Thursday. I see auditing or accounting functions in my future until we get someone to fill in. Our tech services manager is busy looking at and analyzing our current phone system as well as the service providers we have. And he has come up with a plan to consolidate our service providers into one vendor and reduce the number of lines. And so has found some cost saving measures for us. He's working with our wastewater treatment plant operator and some SCADA system vendors to come up with a better quote for our SCADA system upgrade. Thanks for the lead, by the way. Craig's been very helpful. So appreciate that. Because we have an airport, we have to play by federal aviation rules, and that requires us to do a request for qualifications every 5 years for our airport engineer. So this is the year. And so I did an RFQ and I had 2 vendors respond. So Bob and I are going to go through those 2 proposals, as well as sending those out to our airport advisory board and the council just to weigh in on. We'll ask the airport advisory board to make a recommendation in March, so that can get done. Also at the airport, the beacon, the light that goes round and round, which we have yet to figure out how old it is. We believe it was from the late 70s. And Bob and his crew have been doing a fantastic job making that thing last well beyond its useful life. But the current engineer is putting together construction and bid documents to actually replace that this year. It'll be federally funded, reimbursable expense, but currently the beacon is not on a tip down pole. So if you can imagine how much fun it is to patchwork that thing back together when it doesn't work. So going forward, it'll be a lot easier to do maintenance. We're still waiting on the federal Eda Grant. And I got frustrated to the point where I actually emailed Congressman Stauber's office last week, and they called me yesterday, and I responded today with the needed information to see if he can push that along. As of right now, we do have our engineering firm putting together construction and bid documents, because I need to get that moving so we can get the lots officially shown ready so people can actually build up there. Related to Congressman Stauber's office, they're looking for local projects. They've asked us to submit community project forms. So we identified a department head meeting with Keith and his staff with us, some potential projects they'll be working on, just some one-page write-ups to see if we can get into a funding pool for that. We're still moving forward with the classification and compensation study. Currently, my staff, all of the department heads, managers, all of the wastewater treatment staff, 3 of the public works general maintenance folks, and 3 of the police officers are in the process of completing job analysis questionnaires, which is, everybody's having so much fun with those. Once those are submitted, the consultant will actually be doing interviews with all the people that actually filled out a job analysis questionnaire to make sure that they completely understand the scope of work before they start doing benchmark analysis and coming up with a new pay scale. We are in the process of hiring 2 police officers that will fill our complement of officers. We have one starting on the 28th, and I haven't seen a start date for the second one yet. We poached a Kennebec County deputy, so local, lives locally. So that's exciting. The other one will just be starting off his career. He's currently a jailer at the Sherburne County Jail, so he's got some really good experience, but he's never been an on-the-street police officer. So we've got someone with a little bit of experience, and then someone who's just starting up. So we have tomorrow night, we have a public hearing scheduled for our small cities program grant application, and we're working on that. That's for the 7th Avenue County Road 4 infrastructure project, and that's a topic for one of the items on your agenda tonight. So I think that's it.
We're both trying to get spring here a little quicker.
That's beyond my pay scale.
It might.
I see the notice, went out for the sewer rate. increase in
did.
the cities, so.
Yep.
How's that?
Surprisingly, I received 2 calls. One of them was more of just yelling at me, left a voicemail. More concerned about the fact that they felt that they weren't getting any improvements in the system, and that the council should roll back the price increase. And then the other one was just a question on how COVID related to the cost increase and things like that. So other than that, I surprisingly haven't received any more calls than that. So unless the council hasn't directed them to my office or.
I personally have not received it. And when did, or is that going into effect?
It's already in effect. Went in effect the January billing, so it went out in the January bills.
I've read the letter and it was interesting because I think we had talked about to make sure that we aren't getting blamed since we're doing the billing.
Correct.
I didn't see anything that said, don't call Keith or Kathy.
No, I think the phone number directed everybody to call.
Yeah, I was just,
Did you get?
if we're not getting any calls, then it's no big deal.
We do get comments when people come in and pay bills. And we direct them at that time to, that it's a city charge that just go for them. So
Yeah.
we have received some and let them know that it's these comments that they want to share.
A question on 7th.
Yeah.
From beginning to end, how far, you're starting right at the beginning?
We're starting at Rum River, going north to
12th Street.
at least 12th, maybe a little beyond that.
Okay.
So.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's like, let's say it's like 1,000, like about a quarter, not quite a quarter mile.
Six blocks.
Yeah,
So that's
Like
a
6
straight
blocks.
stretch.
yep. So,
Most of it's been updated up by the schools. Right?
I can't answer that question yet. Bob would be the.
Well, that was when the primary school went in.
Yeah.
They replaced the
Yeah.
sewer.
Okay.
I just have one thing. I handed you out a little, some information on what's called age-friendly Princeton. Heather Brooks, our community development director, has taken on this project and held a first meeting this morning, for a couple hours with some community members, and some excitement going on here. The purpose is to is to have Princeton inclusive of all ages, not just seniors or middle age, but children, middle age, seniors, and make it inclusive and having a place to live for everybody. And by improving improving the certain conditions of our city, it'll become that way. It can be that way if it's not already. Some things that were discussed today was the positive things that are going on in Princeton. One thing real positive that was spoke highly of was our parks and how that promotes a nice living environment for all ages, and to work off of that as well for seniors. We have, for example, we have equipment, our playground equipment for kids and that sort of thing, but maybe take that farther and have equipment for more handicap accessibility and senior exercise equipment things. That's just some ideas that are thrown out there, but it seems to be I just wrote down the thing that Minnesota was the 10th state to be age friendly with this project, and then Princeton was the 14th city to take this on, that we want to pursue that, and we're the smallest city. Want to incorporate age friendliness. So I just handed out your brochure, you can take a look at it. See what's something that's a positive, another positive thing. Princeton.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
General managers update.
Yeah, it's been another busy month, so I wanted to put a couple of highlights. Some was already mentioned, but I do want to give some benefits. Jeremy has mentioned that he's been taking the lead on converting to a flex fuel card, which is going to help reduce our fuel costs. And it also allows us the ability to track usage by vehicle and by department a lot better than we did before. Basically, it's a fuel card that will stay with the vehicle. And then when folks use it, typically you enter the mileage or something like that. So it's gasoline. And then it's able to track it that way. The city did that last year.
Yeah, we're in the process of getting it.
Okay.
Yep.
And it was an idea that Michelle had brought up. We did have individual accounts with some of the local gasoline providers, but with this West Fuel Card, it's good pretty much everywhere, except for a couple of gas stations in California, but unless Jeremy does. We should have to. So by using the Wex card, I think we save 1% off our gasoline costs anywhere we go. So whether it's here in town or as Scott mentioned, we're going to conference and it's a cloud up there, we can still get that credit. The deposit refund notifications have been going out for the new policy, and we've had some response on that. Overall, the process is operating very smoothly, and we're working on automating that process going forward, so that will be included as part of our monthly procedures. The rate study continues to move forward as we provide additional information to DPR. We did have a monthly safety training meeting through MWA on February 17th. Scott, as he mentioned this, has been taking the lead on converting our telecom services to FirstNet. This is a program designed for first responders to facilitate communications during emergency, something we talked about before. Again, it was something that the city took the lead on and converted last year, and we've been following suit with that. So if there ever is an outage, we can make sure that our field staff can communicate with personnel. Make sure we get down back up early as possible. We were also over the last month, we were contacted by our property and liability insurance provider. They would like to conduct a thermal imaging inspection later this year. Jim Baker is their primary contact on that, so he's taking the lead there. On the DSM side, which is our energy efficiency efforts, we have issued rebates to the school district, Kaylee House, and American. About once a month, Nancy has also started attending our weekly office staff meetings to help, which has helped us coordinate her activities with our office activities and making sure that our messaging is consistent. Did get the results back from our 2021 Be Right program, which is the at the register rebates we offer for LEDs. Last fall, winter, we rebated 2,220 LEDs, which was a new record by way of comparison. The prior year it was 1,800, so it did increase quite a bit, giving us a total savings of 67,000 kilowatt hours just for that program. Nancy is currently scheduling the next round of big check pictures to highlight our customers that are participating in those programs and the different technologies that they're implementing. That is scheduled for April 5th, so we'll get some more pictures taken of that. Regulatory reports, the MPARS report has been filed with DNR and our water appropriations have been paid. The DER Interconnection Report has been filed. The MPCA Air Emissions Inventory Report has been filed. Jeremy mentioned this earlier, the auditors were in the office on February 9th to do some preliminary data collection and inventory checks. That all went very smoothly. And DOE reports EIA 861S and the EIA 923 have also been filed. For customer outreach, we put together a plan for bill inserts for this year. For February, we're doing an insert on the ACH credit. March, we will have a connector, which will talk about the ACH credit, the convenience fees, as well as some of the water information, water education that we need to get out for our water protection plan. And then in April, we'll do an insert on the convenience fees to make sure we get that information out to our ratepayers. And we're also including some information for the the city because you're currently conducting a survey.
Yes, I forgot to mention a Pulse of Princeton survey.
Yeah, so we'll include that in our connector as well to try to get as many people to participate in the city's effort that we can. On the IT side, Greg Bergman has been working on a better way to connect UConn, which is our AMI system, with Power Manager, which are our billing software. He came up with a great idea using web links to make the AMI data more easily accessible from within individual Power Manager accounts. So he's been working on that. Very optimistic that that's going to help streamline some of our internal operations. Let's see, I already talked about first. So we did get the phones converted as we built up our comfort level on that. The next step will be upgrade our tablets and the water SCADA system. So we're continuing to move forward there. And then we still need to, we got to look at the gateways too, right? And then as part of that process, we did take the opportunity to update the field phones, which were flip phones to smartphones. That's an investment in the future because hopefully as we integrate the MI system more and more into our operations, those will help the field staff address outages as they occur. So hopefully more information get to them in the field, it'll be easier, it'll make their jobs and the quicker we get the system up and running. Let's see, in terms of other organizations that we're working with, I just want to let the commission know that we are hosting the monthly civil board meeting on Wednesday, April 13th. It starts at 9 a.m. That will be in this room for the depot. Commissioners are welcome to attend. I also informed Michelle about that. We'd like to have the mayor there, if at all possible. Because it'd be great to have him welcome to Princeton. On Simple, I also want to mention that Joe Hoffman, who is the current Preston City Administrator and Utility General Manager, has been hired to replace the retired Chris Shaner as the Chief External Affairs Officer. The MMUA Government Relations Advisory Committee continues to meet weekly. In terms of what's going on at the Capitol, there are some discussions on current legislation. It's really in a few different categories. EVs are going to be a big part of that. They're looking at providing funding for EV chargers at rest stops, starting to require EV-ready buildings, looking at rebates for both new and used vehicles, as well as EV chargers in state parks and county government centers. So CDC need some money allocated for that. On the transmission side, which doesn't affect us directly, it's a lot more for SIPA, the GMTs, generation transmission companies, are looking at some issues with solar farms as well as siting. On the solar side, there's a big effort underway to push to put more solar systems on schools. So you'll hear that we talk about more. There is a push on the energy efficiency side to create a technology accelerator program. We'll see how far that goes, as well as additional funds for weatherization by creating grants for apprenticeship programs and things like that. The common theme running through all of that, if you've been following the state discussion, is this year is really focused more on money due to the surplus and not so much on policy. In terms of the Glencoe update, which is something I've kind of mentioned over the last few months, there's been Glencoe is currently going through an air permit renewal and have run into a couple of issues with the MPCA on how to treat local generation, whether it's should be emergency standby or meet more of the standards of baseload power plants. And it really comes down to the 1 hour NOx rules. It's been kind of quiet lately on that front. I know that Glencoe has gotten the state involved, some of the elected officials involved in that as well. It's something that we're monitoring to see how it might impact Princeton in the future. MMUA's legislative rally was February 8th and 9th. Chris Shane here and I met with both Sandra Harrison and Andrew Matthews. The primary topics that we talked about was explaining the impact of third-party sales. There's some effort by some of these solar developers to actually act as the utility and sell electricity to the homeowner, which has a lot of implications for how the utility industry is structured. so that we'll make sure that our elected officials are aware of the challenges associated with that. How we're going to continue to address climate change going forward, and then explaining the challenges facing local generation, which I'm referring to the Glencoe situation. For the wellhead protection plan, Scott and I had a kickoff meeting on February 2nd with WSB and Eda Grant to get that part 2 started. We do have a coordination meeting planned with the city for February 28th. Scott and I will attend, and Michelle, Bob, and Heather are also expecting that. There is a grant application open March 1st and closes March 31st for wellhead protection plan implementation. We are talking with the city to see if there's something we can work together on a small public education effort for that. And then Heather was nice enough to mention our wellhead protection plan efforts at our meeting with Sugar County on February 17th. So I really appreciate her helping us get the word out. And then we did have APPA write up an article about PPU's rate study efforts in their e-newsletter, which was dated January 31st, 2022. So it's nice to get a little bit of national recognition for the work that we're doing. That's what I got. You can see we keep busy.
That's it.
Yes. That's more than enough. I didn't read it.
Okay. 10, ongoing business, ACH discussion.
Yeah, the other thing I have to mention there is that I alluded to this earlier, we did include an ACH maximum report in the reports and presentations.
Immediate meetings, 2022 will be.
Yes, sir. In your package, memorandum 22-08 is our plan for the implementation of the convenience fee. There is some work that we've got to do behind the scenes. Our goal is to have this implemented effective May 1st, 2022. We will be using this month in working with Neon Link to do some reprogramming work, which is needed. Which is needed in order to implement the change. That's expected to be completed late February, early March. In February, we have already started notifying some customers that come in that the convenience fees are upcoming. After March 12th, we will start notifying directly all customers that have utilized automatic payments with credit cards that future payments will need to be canceled and they must re-sign up if they wish to pay by credit cards. That is to make sure that they acknowledge that they're aware of the new fee structure. In the March billing, the connector will be included informing customers of new credit card fees effective May 1. We'll place a sign in the lobby and notices will be posted on our website and Facebook. And then in the April billing, it will certainly be included informing customers of the new credit card fees beginning May 1. We'll repost notices and send out specific blast to everyone that we have emailed, or just to try to make sure everybody is aware of it. That was the schedule that we've been able to come up with internally to make sure that everything works smoothly. I don't know that we need an official approval of that, but I just want to make sure the commission was aware, and if there's any concerns, please. All right, so we will move forward with that implementation.
10C, SIPA distribution.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with this just to make sure the commission is aware. I mentioned this last year. The agency's 2022 budget did include a $12 million cash distribution to members, which is to be paid in 2 installments, February and July. That first installment in the amount of $123,398.20 is to be transferred into our account on February 25th. I expect that to increase our days of cash on hand by 7 days. When you couple that with the July payment, I project that after that installment, assuming everything goes according to plan, we should be over 180 days at that point. So the intention The intention at the moment is to, for that SIPA distribution, to simply put that into cash and go with that cash. Obviously, the commission has the discretion if you want to put that in the capital improvements fund, we can do that. That's really up to you guys, but given the goal of 180, that's why I was thinking that that might make sense.
Good problem to try to
Yeah,
figure out. So, it's good news.
yeah, that's good, great. We've been doing good at getting to our 120, so. He is, but he's, staff has been. Some cost savings.
Yes.
Added to it, so I appreciate that. Yeah, that would be nice. We can have a discussion.
Yeah.
Just keep in mind that 10-year capital plan is.
Yeah,
It's on the
I know. Well, once we do this rate study too, then.
At the very latest September, because I wanted to have all the information ready for our budget discussion at the end of this year. I've been corresponding with Blair and DGR, who's heading up the effort. And so I know he's working on it. When I told him September, he's like, yeah, no problem. So we could have it a lot sooner than that.
1 and 2 have been started. The authorizations that we gave, I had asked that we do 1 and 2 at the same time. And you did 2 reasons.
Those are for, those 2 task orders were for the capital, the pre-engineering work, and some of the financial work for how you would bond for that. Those are, even though they're going to intersect, those are really separate from the rate study. So the rate study was approved in October, November.
Right.
So
But they're moving forward.
yeah, and I know Jeremy's been corresponding with Andy Crew on that, just keeping him up to date on anything going on.
Yeah. I just talked to Andy and Stan this morning about the project north of the schools this morning, as much as we could. I mean, it's very preliminary. I mean,
We just want to, I'm sorry, we just want to make sure DGR is aware of the potential, so that
Yeah.
as we start working on our system,
Yeah.
we have.
Well, I mean, it's however many lots it was. I mean, that needs to be part of it. You know, I mean, 1 or 2 houses here and there isn't a huge deal, but that's a significant.
Is that 75 or something?
80, was it 80?
86.
86, I think it was.
That's significant.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a ton of load, but it's enough to where it makes a difference, because they were gonna use some of that for stuff for east of town, so. Well, and it would be stupid not to tell them about it. I mean, that's kind of why we hired them.
Right, well, the
That's why you were at the meeting.
Yeah,
rate study is only gonna be as good as the information they have.
it's stupid to hire people and that kind of stuff.
So,
No, that's.
like 10B tour discussion.
Yeah, this is something I wanted to just continue to have. We have talked about doing that perhaps with the weather when it's warmer. So I'm just looking for some direction, whether the commission wants to do this next month or later, or spring, summer, whether the commission wants to do that, at the end of a regularly scheduled meeting or do that on a separate day and time. Would like to continue to have that discussion, get some direction.
How long would this take? Hour? More?
Probably an hour. With
I'm sure there'll be questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's
As long as we work.
it's really up to you guys. I mean, yeah,
How many questions?
yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, if you're just touring, depends on what all you're touring. So.
Well, the thought, Commissioner Schwartz mentioned being able to see the facility. So if we go to the south side, the south water tower, the north, so it's not just the immediate stuff right here, but seeing all of it. just so you're aware.
I mean,
where
if
it's
you,
at.
if you want to start encompassing some of the stuff that they're talking about in the system study areas that we're gonna be focusing on first. You know, that's east of town, north of town, a little bit of driving. You know, I would think an hour would probably be right in there, depending on questions and
How many stops is
half a dozen.
Well, it would have to be, it would be a publicly noticed meeting because we would have a quorum. I would love to have, you know, the city involved, the city council,
Yeah.
that event as well, if they're available.
Yeah.
So they can see it, they can ask questions. But being a publicly noticed meeting, it's whoever wants to come, so
Yeah,
it could, I guess, in theory, we could keep it down, but that happened. It would be open to more than just information.
I'm guessing it might be more than an hour, just getting in and out of the vehicle and driving to the next, even though it's fairly close. So if we gave 2 hours, then obviously we don't want to rush. And if
Right.
people have to leave, they leave.
right.
But I wouldn't want to plan on 2 and only get 2 stops in, you know, or
Yeah.
plan on 1 hour, and get 2 stops in.
Yeah, I think we
So
planned for
figure a
2
couple
hours.
hours.
And then through 4,
Well, if we do it 2 hours before, then we're mealtime, so we did it at 3 o'clock.
yeah.
And like I said, we could always do a separate day, you know, a special day.
Sometimes these meetings seem to go.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, 2 or 5,
what is your
yeah.
typical April load
It's
for
usually-
us?
Oh, it's that, it's this, I mean.
Quieter one?
No, it's always, it's always the same.
I mean, I would think if we're here already, we might as well do it.
I would prefer the same day.
So we got another meeting at 3, it takes till 5. Try to-
But if you're gonna publicize it, then people should know when and where to meet,
Here,
right?
take off.
So we'd have to make sure we are done at that specific time.
I think the first thing we could do is just go across the street and then whoever wants to go.
Jack and get it bus.
Well, I am looking at renting a little party bus this week,
Yeah.
just so we can get folks in there. And if we have more than that, then we'll have to, we'll just ride separately.
Otherwise, you're, it's like herding cats.
It'd be like a funeral procession. That's what it'd be like.
Yeah, well, that would be a good idea. Just,
It's, okay, so after a meeting, is this something that we want to do? Next.
April.
Yeah, not March, April.
Okay,
Yeah, let's do April.
April.
We get you to get out. so-
So that's what the 27th. Is that right?
Sure.
What's the 4th Wednesday? Correct.
Weather dependent.
It's Administrative Professionals Day, all
Oh,
day. that
Kathy's
day.
not gonna be.
So, is that a holiday?
Takes it, yeah.
We paid that time.
Yeah.
All right, we will plan for it.
It's plenty of time for notification.
Yes.
April tour to leave, just immediately following. Adjournment with regular meeting. So it could be 2 o'clock. It could be 3 o'clock.
And maybe if I could add this, if there is whoever from the public, if there's a half a dozen or a dozen, if they could go get their tour there as we finish the business. Because I don't need to see it.
The power plant.
Yeah.
That's not-
Yeah.
Okay,
When Dan said they could, we could start with that.
okay,
If said 2 o'clock, we were wrapping up business. Just an idea.
okay. That'll be. Would you want to skip the main facility as well?
I don't think too many people in Princeton have been in there.
A lot of people don't even know. So it's-
Just an idea.
Lots of ways, so.
Well, I can try to draft up a little bit of a template.
Yeah.
A little bit of a plan.
Yeah.
I'll work past everybody.
Yeah.
See what you think.
Yeah, sounds
Yes.
good. Hopefully Greg will be here then. So, okay, that was tour discussion on to new business, letter of support request from the city.
And actually, yeah, I'd like to say this out, Michelle.
I think you might, that's why I'm here. So, Mr. Chair and Rick, we submitted a preliminary application of Minnesota Small Cities Development Program. That's with Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development for a $600,000 infrastructure improvement grant. And we earmarked this grant as an opportunity to do that upgrade of the infrastructure in the 7th Avenue County Road 4. We would merge that or leverage those dollars with the federal ARPA funds, which we've received half of at this point. In addition, we've had conversations with Mille Lacs County. They had initially, back in the day, 7th Avenue as being a reconstruction project, then it was a mill and overlay project, and now it's back on their 5-year plan as being a reconstruction project. So we appear to have potentially all the players at the table. So our preliminary application was found to be marginally competitive, which means that we have, essentially that gives us the go-ahead to put together a full grant application for funding to be considered. We have hired our city engineer, WSB, to actually write the application. They've done these before, with Heather being so new and doing other grant applications. We felt that the money that we're investing with WSB is going to be well spent, just because, again, they have experience, they know which words to use, etc. And as I noted earlier, we're holding a public hearing, which is a requirement of the grant application. And WSB has recommended that we include letters of support to be included. We've requested one from Mille Lacs County. They are going to have that on their March 1st agenda. The application is due March 11th, and on behalf of the city, I'm requesting that the PUC also submit a letter of support for our application. I haven't submitted a draft of it, but I can. Sure.
They're usually pretty basic.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you could use a lot of the stuff that's in here to write it if you wish.
I read the letter that you included.
Yep.
Sure.
Yes.
I make that motion to approve and support City Princeton on that letter dated
February 15th.
Motion, a second, so a motion, a second to support the writing a letter of support requested by the city of Princeton. For the discussion. In favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. City joint meeting discussion.
Yeah, this is something I just wanted to get on folks' calendar. I believe, Michelle, you have tentatively scheduled for May 5th.
Correct, that's the city's study session.
Yeah, so I wanted to check with the commission to see if that's something that the commission wants to do, and if so, does that date seem reasonable? Just looking for some feedback as to doing it in a joint meeting with the city council.
what is the subject matter?
We don't have an agenda.
I don't have an agenda yet.
We haven't done it in the past.
Yeah, no, all four communication.
Yeah.
Networking.
Yeah. Yeah. For the.
Is that date okay?
May 5th works for me.
Yeah, we might have some project updates. Jeremy alluded to a project. It would be good to talk about the rate study and maybe go over they did receive a copy of the DRG presentation on the Capitol. Might be just good to share some information on that. Keith and I can put together a tentative agenda and then present it to both bodies and come up with a consensus as to what needs to be discussed.
So if that is acceptable, we would need a motion to create a meeting for May 5th at 4:30 if you want. Also do that next month too. It's up to your discretion.
Sure. I make a motion for a joint meeting with the city of Princeton, and PUC. And that,
For Thursday. May 5th.
for May 5th at 4:30 at City Hall.
Second. Further discussion. Saying right. One thing I'm talking about that we need to is just the industrial lots and just how. It's the mayor a couple months back. It's one- I know it's been updated since then. But we just have to make sure that we're all on the same page about what we can do to help each other. See the annual open law.
Yeah, I think it's always good practice for governing bodies to review some of the rules associated with how councils and commissions and boards are required to operate in the city. I did find the League of Minnesota Cities had an updated information memo regarding the open meeting law and some of the requirements that we have before us. And I was it's just a refresher to go through it. Even though it's written in terms of city councils, they do discuss in here that it not only refers to city councils, but also to city boards, city commissions, and other public bodies. And really it goes through the different type of meetings, the need for a quorum, the notification requirements that we have as a government entity to make sure that the public is aware and is able to participate in all of what we do, because at the end of the day, it is their utility. It goes through the definition of regular meetings, which are held at times that have been established by the commission. As a commission, we are required to meet once a month, and so to meet that requirement, we keep that schedule. We do post it on our website, on our Facebook page. We post it in the lobby as well for customers that stop in and visit us. There are special meetings when those occur, and actually we just did one for the tour, which is held at a different time and or place from the regular scheduled meeting. We do make sure that you give proper notification, again, so that the public can participate or just witness if they wish. Typically that is, I'm not seeing here the language, but my memory recalls that is those meetings should all be notified 3 days in advance so that people can be aware and plan for it. As we continue to go through, there is the opportunity for emergency meetings. I guess I've never been involved in one in which there was an emergency that had to happen immediately. But if we have to, there is an opportunity to do something like that. Of course, the agenda must be limited to specifically that emergency. that's going on that needs an immediate response. And there is a closed meeting parameter in which there are specific topics that can be handled under a closed meeting, and those are described later in the document. Just kind of going through, you'll see a lot of just parliamentary type requirements. You know, we are required to designate an official newspaper, which we do every January. We're required to select our official repositories for our funds, which again we do every January. So when you see those resolutions, you know why I'm doing that. It's a requirement. And then, move on. Given some of the updates in technology, they have included more information on the use of interactive television, the Zoom meetings that we've been doing, and the requirement that even if you do that, at least one of the members of the body needs to be physically present. A lot of these actually were waived during COVID, but a lot of those emergency declarations have expired now. So I know even the city has kind of gone back to more of a business as usual in how you handle some of those meetings too.
Correct.
So Michelle and I, every once in a while we talk about this because this is what we do. Just to make sure
We're such policy wonks.
yeah. But there are different things in here as to how that is handled. The whole idea is that using interactive television, that each member has the ability to see and hear everything that's going on, so that any conversations are under the public purview. And then it continues to go through some other different just technicalities, just to make sure that everybody's meeting everything. Just kind of. There are some limitations too in when meetings can be held. Government meetings cannot occur on public holidays, so they list those. Since we meet last Wednesday of the month, we haven't run into that, and when we do get into a Thanksgiving or Tuesday issue, we did ahead. But we've never had a meeting scheduled for the actual holiday, so we can find out that. And just to recap, all this is predicated under the open meeting law, whose purpose is to make sure that the public is generally informed of all meetings. And the openness serves three vital purposes, which excuse me, to prohibit actions from being taken at a secret meeting where it's impossible for interested public to become fully informed concerning decisions that the public body may take, to help detect any improper influences, to ensure that the public's right to be informed is met, and to give the public an opportunity to present its views to the public body. That's why we have public notice, space, time, and location, making sure that the printed materials are available, which you see we post on our website now in terms of the agendas and the minutes. Again, those are governed by the open meeting law. Gives the exception to the open meeting law. Meetings that may be closed include labor negotiations. It includes performance evaluations of individual staff. Anything under attorney-client privilege. You can also close a meeting regarding the purchase or sale of property, and anything that and you may also close it to receive any security briefings or reports. Anything outside of that should be conducted at an open meeting. Meetings, there is a requirement that certain meetings must be closed. Those include any misconduct allegations, and anything that contains any certain not public data. You will notice when we do some of our end of the year stuff in regarding to write-offs, we don't state specifically who the customer is. That's because it's considered private data. But we give enough information so that folks can make a decision as to whether to do that. There are also requirements in terms of data practices, making sure that we preserve and maintain records that are included. How you handle simply its informational meetings. It does handle, being a small town, this is always important to us, a chance or social gathering of city, of members of the body. That's not considered a meeting under open meeting law as long as there's not a quorum present, or if a quorum is present, as long as the quorum does not discuss, decide, or receive information about official business. So I know some people get pretty sensitive about that, especially in the public. There are always perception issues that we want to be aware of to make sure that folks are comfortable with the decisions that are being made in public meetings. There's also information on serial meetings. This doesn't happen so much with us because we only have 3 members. But when you start getting to, say, 5 or 7 or 9, the intent is to make sure that folks aren't having meetings less than a quorum and then having multiple meetings to try to decide on something outside of a public meeting. That's considered a violation as well. The same goes with not just verbal communication, but anything through telephone and emails. To just that's why we've been very careful to when we share information, we share that with the people involved. But having a discussion back and forth via email can be construed as a violation if we're not careful about it. The state has gotten involved and said if those same discussions happen on a public social media platform like Facebook, that's not a violation because people can see what's going on in those conversations. So just because people witness, just because different members witness that conversation doesn't make it a forum issue. There's a lot of information in the packet, but like I said, I think it's good information for participants in the government process to always be aware of. And there is some teeth to it that if there is ever decided to be a violation, that the member who has intentionally violated that or has repeatedly done that can suffer from civil penalties, which are not allowed to be paid for by the government, by the organization that they're overseeing. And then even further on, they talk more about meeting procedures and agendas and contents. Again, Michelle and I kind of live and breathe this stuff, but it is good for other folks to be aware. It is something that Michelle and I have talked about, which is given that this affects not just the city council, but all the different boards and commissions, having an annual event. I know the league has come out to the local governments to do education events, to make sure that folks are aware of the rules. I think the Association of Minnesota Counties has done it as well. It's a very important issue, and we should be abide by the law. So my only point is just to make sure that the commission is aware of those rules, to give you some reference material if there's ever any questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to try to answer that, anything you might have. And if I can't answer it, the league has been a good resource.
I would point out that from my other hat, which is my volunteering hat for the Fair Board, because we receive public dollars, the open meeting law actually trickles down and affects us as a nonprofit, not a government entity, but because we receive public dollars, we are held to the same standards. So our larger Minnesota County Fairs Federation has annual trainings on making sure that you meet the open meeting law. And in fact, we updated our local bylaws to accommodate for the new technologies, Zoom meetings, and things like that. So, so it's got some pretty broad, potentially some pretty broad tentacles that extend beyond just government agencies.
So, like I said, I think it's just a good topic to just refresh all of our memories of every year. And So I would like to make sure we have that discussion, just so, just so nobody's
I mean,
in
what's
trouble
your-
or accused of anything improper.
And I will tell you, when I've gotten to trainings from either the Minnesota County's Insurance Trust or even the Minnesota City's Insurance Trust, there's a big, there's a big practice that in both of those organizations that deal with the open meeting law. And it's never a good thing to be in the paper because you violate the open meeting law.
Yeah. Any questions?
No, one part was interesting, so it's almost like, saying you can't have one person, and we don't have, any meetings we have, only 3 people, it's pretty much. It's a quorum.
Yeah.
The city council, 2 people could have a meeting. and then Talk about things.
That says that
That's
is,
kind of a.
that's technically a violation.
Yeah,
It's called a sequential meeting where,
but I mean, there's,
yeah,
you can watch meetings in the past and tell that something like that happened. You know, but I don't know how that. Prove that, but it's pretty obvious. Be that coincidental.
well, I will tell you that I've been in, since I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary here. I mean, I've been at public events with, 2 counselors, and a 3rd one has come up, and one of the 2 I was with actually walked away and went to another part of the event just to make sure that there wasn't, perception is reality.
Yeah.
And since, someone, or Jeremy sitting can't tell what 3 of us are talking about, they could assume that we would be talking about city business. So just by removing one player, you're no longer, at least on the council, no longer meeting that quorum requirement. So
How does that come into play with Zoom meetings then? I.e., I enjoy listening to the work stuff. I enjoy that. If I'm on Zoom, not to say anything, but just to stay informed. And then if that is on, for the same purpose, for us to all communicate better, that's a perfect platform to do it, to stay informed, not just what's going on here, but what's going on there.
In that case, because Tim Hager used to talk about that as well. As long as you 2 aren't talking to each other, you're both observant. That's not a violation, but to your point, you have to worry about the perception issue.
correct.
If they were muted, if they were at a, or let's take Zoom out of it. If the 2 of you just went to a city council meeting, if you were sitting next to each other, that would probably be a problem. But if you were sitting on opposite ends of the room, just watching, then it's obvious.
Then as it's not, yeah, I mean, I agree with Keith. It's that,
Same as church, And you have council members that belong to the same church and singing the same word. I mean, it's inevitable that it can happen, but it's the perception.
Yeah.
What you said is a very valid point. Just have common sense to disperse, but
yeah,
some places you can't avoid it. There's
no,
a city function, there's a
there's a,
police and
Yeah.
public safety night. A whole count there.
But even when you did the groundbreaking, you did publicly notice
Mhm.
that event
Around-
for 21st.
Oh, sure.
That was a
Yep.
publicly noticed.
Yeah.
event,
yeah,
That's right.
Just to,
Yeah.
say.
Any-
I get it. Yeah.
anytime we think there might be the possibility for a quorum, we basically try to publicly notice it just to avoid those issues.
Even though there's no decision making going on
Correct.
at a groundbreaking.
Correct. but it's the proverbial, you know, again, if you look at the case law, there's a ton of it that surrounds social media. The other issue that usually crops up in most incidences of when people have been accused of violating the open meeting law are what's called a sequential meeting, where you talk to Rick and the two of you decide, and then either Rick or you go to Greg and have a conversation about the same topic, and then sort of decide ahead of time what you're gonna, and then that would be a violation. If someone knew that that's what was going on, that would be a violation of the open meeting law, because you have to have, the whole point of the open meeting law is that topics come before you, you have an open discussion, everyone that's potentially impacted can hear both sides of the debate and have the opportunity to, so you're not making your decision under a bushel basket, basically. And so, and with, you know, Zoom and technology, I mean, there's some rules in here, like, for example, if I have a counselor, or when I worked at the county, if we had a commissioner that was not present physically, but was participating by Zoom, we had to post on the door of the meeting room that Commissioner Oslin was participating from his Arizona winter home, and this was the exact address. And when he did that, he was at a condo, he always did it from the meeting room, because that meeting room theoretically is public, because one of the requirements is that if you are participating remotely, you have to be in a space where the public can theoretically access you.
To make sure that you're actually.
Correct.
Somewhere.
Yeah, so there's,
Is that still?
well, as far as I know, but some of that stuff, and I'll have to look to see.
But if somebody, so say somebody zooms in and they're driving in their car, is that
Technically, they're not meeting the.
it's not a public space? Or
Correct.
public accessible?
Correct. There is an exception. I was reading that today. There is an exception, is that you can participate not from a public space as long as you don't do it more than 3 times a year. So the whole driving in a car thing, you can do that 3 times, but the next 4 times that you're participating, you better be in a place where the public can access you.
But clarify for me, please, Michelle.
Yep.
So the person would be holding office with that council or.
Correct. It's the, yep, it's the counselor, or in your case, a PUC member, a planning commission member, you know, a school board member. It's not a member of the public who might want to just watch, so.
So the last time, I'll just share this, and the last time I wanted to just listen in to help keep communication, you know, better working, I was refused because I didn't have anything on the agenda.
Correct, and that's our policy going forward. So basically, we're going back to before the pandemic, because, you know, people are either vaccinated or you know, the separation requirements are gone. So you can still watch the meeting because we're posting it online after the meeting, but because we have the potential for some, I guess, confrontational issues that we've got Naval News. I don't know if Keith gave you an update on that, gentleman. That the police chief basically wants, you know, everybody who wants to participate or listen in, come to the meeting in person, or they wait for the Zoom to be posted. If you have something on the agenda and you cannot make it, we will give you a Zoom link. But Ed is basically parking you in the waiting room and you'll be brought in when your item comes up, and then you'll be, gone. So basically,
And part of that too, I think, is because Zoom does allow you the ability to have private chats
correct.
with other Zoom participants, which then would fall into that violation. So even if you two were zoomed in and not talking to each other in public, you could in theory be communicating behind the scenes. And so you don't want to facilitate that.
Correct. So there is that.
So is that, I'm trying to understand, somebody that holds a position, either as a commissioner or whatever function, but is appointed or elected, that's treated as public and therefore cannot, or is that an exception?
I'm not following you, Rick.
Okay, going by off of what you said, that a public, you don't want the public all in on a Zoom like at one time it used to be.
Correct, because we're no longer under emergency, state of emergency.
Right.
So basically, at this point now, we're going back to, we're doing Zoom as a convenience for people who have an item on the agenda, who can't attend. Those people can specifically request a link. We're recording the meetings on Zoom, and they will be posted to the city's website, but we're not using it like, it's not like cable TV or anything like that. So,
Right.
So at this point, we're using Zoom as a recording tool and to facilitate people who, for whatever reason, can't attend, who have an item on the agenda.
Normally, the way I see it is the Zoom stuff is used for the people who are actually on that government dock,
Correct.
not for anybody outside.
I use it as a platform to stay informed.
Correct. And
And
you
I
can,
think I was there one time and somebody asked me a question
yep,
that, so from that standpoint. I
correct.
answered and
And,
I
Yep.
muted myself out.
yep, and you'll still be able to be informed. It's just gonna be on tape delay, basically.
I was just trying to.
Yep.
So. If I show up and Dan shows up and we go in different directions, I could see the potential danger there. That all of a sudden, something with the PUC or a question comes up that maybe the council can't answer. And Jules, you see, well, Dan's there, Rick's there, let's just ask them, also all three of us are talking. I see that danger.
Correct. And Keith has been attending the council meetings now on a fairly regular basis. And,
That's good.
and so I think that the mayor would probably look to Keith first to respond. And if Keith wasn't there, I would, the best answer I would give if you're not totally sure and you don't want to get into a discussion would be, Mr. Mayor, we'd be happy to research that question and get an answer back to you at the next meeting. Would be the way I would advise you. And I don't know if Keith has a different opinion, but that's how I would handle it.
I'm sure at some point Damien might speak up too.
Correct. The city attorney is always in attendance, so I'm sure he would have something to say.
I see a little, there's one area that's not really covered in there that I see could be a potential interference or advantage, how you look at it. But, from your position or Keith's position, you have the ability to stream with every council member, Does that make,
Correct. And frankly,
so you can talk to each council member.
correct. And
try
and I
to
will
get a
tell you
policy
that
I
will tell you that I used to have conversations with county commissioners who would say, well, you need to do this. It's like, no, I don't work at the pleasure of one county commissioner. I work at the pleasure of 5 county board members. If you want to talk about that policy issue, we will bring it to the full county board, and we have we'll have that conversation. And that I've been doing this too long, and this is my responsibility to my local elected officials, whether they be at the city or county level, is to make sure that we don't step in a liability issue and spend money. So I am not going to start a conversation, a sequential conversation with 5 council members or 5 county board members, because that's one fast way down the road to a lawsuit. And now I've violated my fiduciary responsibility to my elected board.
So what powers does it's a little, I'm just saying, like here, we have a chair. And with the city board, you have. So what powers, like on a day-to-day basis, does the mayor have for decision making for the city on a day-to-day basis? Or what is there really?
It's mostly, they just need to be.
Correct.
Right. So like.
And maybe sign off.
Yeah.
So the mayor's, so Keith was right. The mayor's role is to run meetings, sign checks. I will, on occasion, I might, for example, we have a study session coming up. And I thought about just calling the mayor individually to see if he had any topics for discussion for that study session, because I didn't have any. I opted instead to email the entire city council and say, hey, do you have a list of topics? And since I didn't have a resounding response, I put it on the agenda as a discussion item for Thursday night, saying, what would you like to discuss for the study session? Our role as city staff is set by policy. So we have a personnel manual that we're reworking. We have a set of financial policies that will likely get updated. We do the same thing that Keith talked about at the beginning of every year. The council sets depositories and the official paper. And so basically, I mean, the mayor, for example, we have a contract for potentially tapping trees, a lease agreement. It's on the agenda for tomorrow night to authorize, for the council to authorize the execution of that contract by the mayor and myself. So he's not a king.
So who does like the police chief report to?
Police chief reports to me.
Okay, so basically all the departments report to you.
Yep.
You report to the council.
Correct, but even the police department has, they have, separate from the city, they have an entire, who knows how many page manual, that much of which is dictated by state statute and the BCA and the FBI in terms of how they operate, in terms of their own internal workings. So my role is, yes, to facilitate communication between the people that report to me and the city council and vice versa.
Fire chief also.
Yep. And so, but, they bring their own policies to, if they need to change something or they need input. Yes, we collaboratively work together, but it's, I provide the support that they need to get their work done and advocate for them to the city council as needed. And then back, then the information goes back. And most of the department heads attend all the city council meetings. For the most part.
But the first guy on the commission here, services. Friends. Business. Still continue to go out to dinner. I'm sure that was bad, but I think
But she's not in a position of, on the,
she was at the time. She
Yeah.
was- Well,
I mean,
But I also think Mindy was very,
Oh, we didn't
just,
talk,
right, you
we
guys,
didn't talk policy at all.
Yep.
Mindy was a sticker for that.
Yeah, yeah.
to make sure.
I mean, it's, being in the public eye is it's a balancing act, you just have to know that what you talk about is something that it's not that you're not supposed to have friends and family and other people that serve on other commissions, and
Yeah.
you just have to know that if you go out to dinner with someone, if I go out to dinner with Jules, I'm gonna talk about his family, my family, the weather, how about them Vikings or those Twins, or the scoreboard, or ITT stuff, and we're gonna, we're gonna avoid talking city business.
I think there's always potential to.
Yeah.
For perception of.
But, if you demonstrate consistency and integrity, the public is gonna know that you're not doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing. At the end of the day, at least I believe that.
Yeah.
So.
I've been in such situations where I've talked to that one person, on the council, whoever that is, and to get it to formulate an idea where I'm gonna go with that. And I've been so many times tempted to do that, to contact another member, but I haven't, because I know what happened, and I always look at it. I have the opportunity to try to be persuasive during the meeting, to persuade other members to go along with my train of thought.
Right, that's where it should happen.
But there is a temptation
Yeah.
to contact, and I've been more friends with others on the
Yeah.
council, and
Right.
it's always tempting to go above and beyond that, another one person, and try to, because it's a lot easier talking privately than a public setting. I resist that, and I think there's a whole.
And
So I sit back sometimes, tell you the truth, where are they gonna go with this, And then all of a sudden I hear it and I have a habit of talking when they, just kind of blurt stuff out. I think you found that out. And I said, really? So
I think,
it's challenging at times.
well, and I think that's why, as far as elected officials go, I think it's really important to participate in some of the larger state organizations and network with other people that are in your position, so that, instead of calling your fellow council person or your fellow PUC member, call someone in another city and say, hey, I got this great idea. What do you know about it? I want to make this argument. Can I make this argument to you? What do you see are holes in my argument? Because I'd like to persuade other people on my elected board. That way you're not having, you're not falling into that temptation of wanting to call out a third council person or someone else, so.
Because, and especially at times things can get very personal. And you wanna believe strongly about a certain matter, whatever, and you wanna fight for it, but you have to stay within the rules. You have to do what's right.
No, it's when I first got on the commission, it was really interesting.
I think that was one of the, we talked about, you have a commission of 3, I think that was always discussed, that if there's 5, you would be able to talk with Rick.
Right.
But what Michelle was saying is very a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Alternative for you.
That would be, right. From somebody else's.
I have a taxi with granddaughter.
Oh,
11D service territory issue.
Yeah, I apologize for the lateness of this. I just got the actual language this morning from Kayla. As part of the city's effort to reconstruct 21st Avenue at 19, there's a trail as they connect that network together on the west side of the road. And there's an interest in putting streetlights in there, not just for the street, but also for that trail for safety concerns. Where that road is going, and there's actually a map, a handout that I gave everybody in the back. With how that road is being constructed, it does go pretty much right through this trifecta between Crescent Public Utilities, East Central Energy, and Connexus. It's right on that corner. There are, in how everything's being designed, there are 6 streetlights that end up being an East Central Energy service. This right here, where you can see Crescent Utilities, East Central Energy, with 6 different streetlights. There's Connexus's little corner, but that streetlight is actually outside of Connexus and ours. So I didn't have to bother Nick with it in terms of coming up with an exception agreement with Connexus simply because there isn't one there. However, Nick, maybe you and I should talk. If there's a line to what's in there, it's not used that way. No? Good. Okay. So there are 6 streetlights there. It's not a major consumer. It's not an actual, the actual lot or anything like that. I did have a couple of conversations with Matt at East Central Energy about doing an exception. This is something we have done in the past, where when you have a very low usage application, where you have somebody's facilities distribution network that is closer to the host utility, then it may make sense to make exception for streetlights or a highway sign for things of that nature. East Central Energy has given me, has told me that they've reviewed the language generically. They don't see anything wrong with it. They anticipate that they would approve it. Wanted to bring it before the commission to make sure that it's okay with the commission. If so, I would be, my recommendation is to adopt this agreement and have the commission make a motion on that. If you have questions, happy to try to answer those. If you need more information, it's something that we can table. I don't think the lights are going in the next month anyway.
No, we're not even restarting construction.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to stay
Until
ahead of
probably
this.
April,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I've been working with Jen at WSP, who's the engineer for the city on this project, just to make sure we can get all the legal stuff lined up. So when construction starts, they can just keep it. So I don't know if, again, I apologize for lateness. We just got it today. It's really at your discretion. If you want to talk about it now, if you want to table it, I'm looking for some direction.
Who bears the cost of this?
So the cost to install is part of the project. And then what happens is basically in how we're structured is the light post would then be under the utilities jurisdiction to maintain and operate. They're not individually metered. They would be part of the rest of the streetlights.
It's part of our.
Well, they are metered off of the light controller by
Oh,
the dentist office.
for just these lights?
Not these, as part of all of them that are on 21st. That is a metered,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, that the street light controller at 1st and 21st,
Okay,
they would be coming off of this.
okay,
It would be an extension off of that circuit that goes down to the safety building. Those
okay,
7 or 8 lights that are there are metered.
okay. So we do have some streetlights that are metered for the city, right?
Yes.
So I guess that would be the conversation we have then. Where we have built the city for that stuff before. Am I remembering that correctly?
No, they're just metered for usage.
Oh, so we haven't built the city for,
No,
Okay.
it's just for usage as far
okay,
as I
just so
know.
we can track.
They're in the street light book,
Okay,
just for,
So it's still, it's part of the pilot, so.
correct. So we would pay for,
it's just,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
it's just so we got billed, I believe, this much from Simpa. We sold this much, and where's the balance? well, this much went to, we can account exactly for this much for streetlights, because this many streetlights are metered, and then the rest of them, we figure out, well, there's this many at this wattage, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
So is that cost then, in item 29? Is that 365,000
Item 29, that's the-
what's the,
on the page? table?
what's the line item?
29.
no, it's not something that we,
It's SIPA, December purchase power.
oh, that's the total energy that we purchased from Simplot. That's all the electricity that's used. in town.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to hear you say. So now 55 is PT utilities, monthly utilities is 3,100.
No,
No.
that's what we pay for our
For
our
our facility.
buildings, yep.
Yes, I get that. Where are, is the city paying for the lights? Are we paying for the lights, the power it uses?
We pay for it.
Okay,
That's part of where,
where does that expenditure?
It's not on,
Okay,
because it doesn't get billed anywhere.
okay.
But we do, like Jeremy was saying, we do track it at the end of the year, so we
But it's-
know where it's at and we can
Yeah.
calculate what our losses are in the system.
But it's absorbed within
Yeah,
our system.
yeah. Exactly.
Do we know how much that is?
it was in that pilot study, I think it was.
Yeah, I can send you information on that. That'll list out everything. Because I do that each year. And I can share that with the whole commission.
Does the city council know that we're paying for that?
Yes, it was part of the discussion last
Okay.
year.
I'm good.
So do you want us to make a motion on this?
Well, in order to move forward, I do need a motion. To accept the agreement.
I make a motion for the exception agreement to follow through with that.
Second, so we have a motion and a second. Do the exception agreement, to include some public utilities and central energy. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Motion carries. Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
I.
Motion-
Nick, have any questions?